Hello, today I'm making a video about how to use Case Manager in eClinicalWorks. So the first thing you have to do for the Case Manager is go and enable it in your practice defaults. So that's located under File, Settings, and then your practice defaults. So all the way in the Options tab over here, you should be able to find a checkbox for this right here, Enable Case Manager on the appointment. So once you've enabled that in the practice defaults, you'd have to log out and log back in to see any changes. After it's been updated in the practice defaults, we're going to use this test patient. So I'm going to double click on this appointment and open this test patient's appointment up. So right away you can see a difference here if you didn't have this enabled before, or maybe you're just noticing that there's this case manager option right here. What the case manager is used for in eClinicalWorks is a lot different than what people might think. So typically somebody in medical who thinks of a case manager, they think of an actual person who is doing some type of case management services. And in this case, the case manager for eClinicalWorks is used for insurance purposes. So the first thing that we have to do is we'll go into this patient's info and update their insurance information. So the case manager basically works in the sense that you're telling the system, for this appointment only, we're going to bill some separate insurance. So really common examples of that are going to be something like a workman's comp or workers' comp or motor vehicle accidents, like you're billing State Farm for this visit only. Or in this case that I'm going to show you, it's going to be for dental insurance. Typically the system is going to assume that you're going to bill the primary insurance in the system unless you tell it otherwise. So right here, the first step in the case manager is to make sure that both of those insurances are added into the system. So you can see that I have this patient's, this is Medi-Cal primary, so that's their medical insurance right there. It has that P indicator to denote that it's the primary insurance for this patient. So if we left this case manager blank, the claim is automatically going to be created with this Medi-Cal primary. Now I'm going to add my dental insurance, so I'm just going to update this and make sure this is done correctly, and it's not. So I want to make sure that this dental box is checked, or in the case of, like a State Farm or something like that, or even behavioral health insurance, you actually don't need to get the primary or the secondary or tertiary or anything else checked. So you just leave that completely blank. For dental, I'm going to go ahead and check this dental box since it is a dental insurance. So I'm going to add that in there. That's perfect. So now that those are both in this patient's chart, I'm ready to go back out to that next screen. You can actually see from this screen that there is this new case button. So you could create a new case from this screen as well. I'm just going to jump back out and do it from this screen here. I like this a little bit better. So for this patient, since it is a test patient, it has this case manager lit up in yellow, which actually tells me there's already been a case created for this patient. So if I click on this down arrow, I can see that there's actually an open case for this patient called dental. So how do you add those open cases? You have a new button right next to it. So you have this create new case. If I click on that, this is how you would go ahead and create that open case. And what's great about using the case manager is, as you can see from the previous screen, is that once you create that case, you can continue to reuse it. So you don't have to do this every single time a patient comes in for a dental appointment or a behavioral health appointment or their motor vehicle accident appointment as well. So let's just pretend like we're making a brand new one. I'm going to give this a label. So just like the other one, I'm going to call it dental. We'll call this one dental 2 so we can notice a difference. If you want to use a case type, you can. You can see in this system we don't have any case type set up. I'm sure that might have something to do with reporting, but it doesn't have anything to do with actual creating of the claim in the correct manner. The label is the most important part. The label, adding the insurance, and keeping the status as open. So now that I have my label in there, I'm going to click on Add Insurance, and you can see that this is pulling from the patient's information insurances. So if I hadn't added it at this point, I'd have to back completely out, or there's actually an info button right here that I could try to get into and add that insurance into the profile. So I'm just going to check on this Medi-Cal dental. Now that's added. You can also see that I can make a case for bill to patient. So if normally, if there's a certain appointment type that you don't want the insurance to be billed, and you have your billing system set up to do some of those automatic billing features, and you're saying, you know, for this visit only, it's a lab visit, it's a nurse visit, or some type of out-of-office or out-of-pocket visit, then you could bill to the patient and build a case that way as well. So I have my case label, I pulled in my insurance, and I'm going to do the status over here as open. And that's pretty much, if you have additional information that you need to enter in, you could enter that information in. Otherwise, those are your basic required fields, and I'm going to do OK. The not so fun part about the case manager is now that I've created it, you would expect, of course, to see that open case right here. That's actually not the case. You have to click on OK and let the system kind of reboot itself, and then double click and open the appointment up again. Now that I've reopened it, I click on this down arrow and I can see that my Dental 2 case is now there. I can select it, and then now that's selected as an open case. So when this note gets locked and this claim gets created, if this is selected here in this, just like it is under the open cases, it's going to bill that dental insurance instead of the medical insurance. So, and that works for any of those things. And then as you have multiple visits, of course, you can always go into the patient's case manager. In this case, I have the Dental 2. So let's say they change dental insurances, then this is when you would come in and you would close that case. You don't want to delete things. You don't want to delete the insurance out of this case in the event that the claim hasn't been created yet for a previous visit or something like that, it'll pull the misinformation. So just like you never delete insurances out of a patient's account, you would never delete a case or make modifications to a case, assuming that it was done correctly in the first place. You would just close that case and then create a new one for the new insurance if they changed insurances or you had to create something else. That's all I have for the case manager. Thanks.